with us here on Talk of the Bay. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and with me is Adrienne Edwards. She is an expert in fire prevention, which is a topic dear to all of our hearts here in the Monterey Bay. Welcome. Thank you for your patience in getting on the air tonight. Thanks for being with us.
Oh, thank you so much. And I'm sorry about all of the technical glitches, but
hey, they're invisible to our listeners. That's what counts. But we're so glad that you could make it. And tell us a little bit. You have a new publication out that might help our listeners prepare better. I've been struggling with insurance companies canceling us because we hadn't done all the right things. So tell us what some of those right things look like.
Yeah, and those right things actually, I hate to say it, but insurance commissioners don't necessarily have a good understanding about everything they need to know about fire. And my co-author and I, Rachel Schleiger, wrote Firescaping Your Home after the Camp Fire. Her home was in the Camp Fire footprint in 2018, and her home survived. Her neighbors did not. Their homes did not. But she had done regular annual burning in small batches around her property. She lives in a really high fire risk zone, right on the top of a peak where the winds blow up during the day and blow down at night. And so, it's always windy at her place. And so she has learned to live with the topography, with the winds, and and has prioritized in a way to identify the things that she can correct on her structure first, and then think about vegetation. And one of the things that occurred to us after the campfire as plant ecologists is that there are so many recommendations about clearing 100 feet or 300 feet away from a building and maybe replacing it all with irrigated lawn, but that actually can make your home more vulnerable. And just to be clear, sometimes vegetation can increase the chances or your risks of structure ignition. Sometimes they can decrease the risk, and I'd love to elaborate on that. And sometimes they make no difference. The Camp Fire was a firestorm that, for a lot of people, there was very little they could do except to improve their property in a way that gave them more time to get out.
I was going to ask you that was one of the big, there was a checklist, that we got. And one of them was remove all brush from around your house. I mean, all like growth from around your house, pretty much eliminate all your bushes and, even things like lemon trees had to go. And then cover up your eaves and make it all like cement around your house or rock.
Yeah.
Right? Is that true? Like, is that the best thing you could do?
No.
Oh, well, you should tell my insurance company that.
I should, but they're not ecologists. They're not fire experts. They're only doing what they're being told, right? So, we can't even blame the individuals. It's sort of an institutional thinking. The problem with living in these beautiful areas that intermix or interface, wildland-urban interface areas,
the WUI,
is that the WUI. Yes, thank you. You all know what that means. Is that, we want to live in these beautiful places, but if we all move up into the hills and punch holes into the wilderness, we're not going to have any pretty stuff left. And especially if we follow guidelines to clear everything way far away from all structures. And so coming back to that, the number one source of ignitions in homes in the WUI are flying embers, not shrubbery up next to your house. That said, of course, folks in Monterey are well versed in defensible space criteria, and that first, if you're in a medium fire risk zone, 5 feet away from your home there needs to be nothing combustible. absolutely nothing. But then you can have a lean, green, and clean zone beyond that that will increase protection around your home by dissipating the wind and by capturing some embers as long as your plants are hydrated. Because if you think about it, your home is much easier to ignite than a well-hydrated tree or shrub.
Right.
Because they have water in them. Yeah. And so those are the kinds of subtleties that we need to get insurance people to understand.
And how do you educate them? Are you giving them your publication, trying to have them read up, or their presentations at conferences? How does the transmission of this information happen?
That's a really excellent question. And, you know, we're coming at this as plant ecologists who are concerned about preserving native biodiversity while also protecting structures so that we can live with fire in landscapes. And so we also need to learn how to communicate with the insurance industry and with, all of the different fire councils and CAL FIRE and all of them. And I think I would think that CAL FIRE and the fire communities would agree with everything that we've put in these books. And if we can get these books out to the insurance industry, that's a great idea, and I'm going to make a note of that. Maybe we'll send some complimentary copies to the insurance adjusters.
And real quick, Adrienne Edwards, could you tell people the title of your books and where they might be able to find them?
Yes, it's called FIRESCAPING Your Home, a Manual for Readiness in Wildfire Country. It's published by Timber Press, and you can find it at independent bookstores all over. You can find it online, and it's also available from pretty much any book distributor that you can think of now.
Now, I have a couple more questions, and I wish we had more time. We have about 6 minutes, but I wanted to ask, there's two kinds of fires that seem to come through lately, and one of them is a firestorm that you mentioned. That's what the campfire was up in Paradise. Here in the CZU, we had both kinds. We had ground fires, which seemed to be fightable and moved slowly through the duff, and then there was the firestorms that wiped things out no matter what you did. So how does your book distinguish between preparedness for the one where, in one case, I think you mentioned you just need to get out in the firestorm scenario, but in the creeping along the ground, there's more you can do with your vegetation. Is that correct?
There is more you can do, and even with a firestorm, again, some of it's luck, and I know several people who survived the firestorm of the campfire, but all of them were doing things to reduce the risks to their structures, and they also were trying to support native plants. So this idea that we need to have native plants in the WUI, and we also need to support the native biodiversity, is tied to the fact that those plants have evolved with our Mediterranean climate. And so even when they are drought stressed, if you keep them pruned up, prune off the dead stuff, spray them down with water periodically, they're going to hold water better than things that are not adapted to that environment.
Like my daisies, which are so pretty, but...
Your daisies are pretty, and as long as they're not up against the house and that you keep them kind of clean. The other thing you can do is have gaps in your landscaping where maybe you have some pebble ground cover, and then you have an oasis that has trees and shrubs in it. And by breaking up the fuels, you can reduce the ability of the fire to be carried from, in a direct fashion across the landscape. The other thing that we introduce in the book is the idea of fire shelters or fire windbreaks, if you will. And so if you can study your landscape, if you understand what the winds do, on a coarse scale, but also around your home, you can make subtle changes in your landscaping to influence those wind patterns. For example, if you have a solid wall in front of your house, it will tend to cause the wind to compress and sweep over the wall, and then it eddies behind it. And anytime the wind forms eddies, it's going to keep cycling around with debris and burning embers. So there are things you can be strategic about to reduce the probability of that.
That is so interesting. I'm speaking with Adrienne Edwards. She is the author of a new book that you might want to check out if you live in the WUI or even if you don't, the Wildland-Urban interface. And again, before we go, let me have you say the title one more time.
The title is Firescaping Your Home, a Manual for Readiness in Wildfire Country from Timber Press. And we also have a great glossary of all kinds of native plant suggestions to think about to beautify and support biodiversity while you stay fire safe.
Adrienne, I want to thank you so much for being here with us. You've given us a lot to think about, and I really appreciate your time.
Oh, thank you so much. It was a joy.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
And good luck. And good luck with the insurance.
Thank you. Appreciate it. All right. Bye-bye. This is KSQD Santa Cruz. I'm Rachel Ann Goodman, and just wanted to mention that we are opening up judging to our listeners for their Otter Be a Song About 841 contest, the surfboard stealing otter that's made the news in the past couple of weeks. If you'd like to vote on your favorites of our contestants, they're up on our website at ksqd.org. We'll be playing some of those contestants on the weekend shows, so stay tuned to K-Squid, and thanks so much for listening. Up next is From the Bookshelf with Gary Shapiro, but first it's time for First Person Singular. This is KSQD Santa Cruz, KSQT Prunedale.